Hello, and welcome to Lunar Magic Tea Time, where we discuss everything magical, mystical, metaphysical, and sometimes even a little mundane. I'm Kristen. Today is June 22nd, 2020, which makes today Oracle Monday. The deck I am using kind of goes back in time for me a little bit. It's one of the first Oracle decks I ever got, or at least one of the first Oracle decks that I ever got and opted to work with instead of passing on to someone else. When I picked it up and held it in my hand, I knew this is a deck I'm going to work with and I'm going to build a relationship with. I found it in the most bizarre place to find a deck like this. It was in a secondhand store in a very hip neighborhood. Very cool, but the secondhand store itself was down in someone's basement, and it definitely had this vibe of, well, instead of throwing yard sales, I'll just open up a secondhand store kind of a deal. Only thing like it in the entire place. Everything else was movie memorabilia and westerns and things like that. But the minute I put my hands on it, I knew it was mine. I didn't even look at who made it, but it was made. This is Heart of Fairy, and it was made by Brian and Wendy Frood. Sure. The creative geniuses and the reason the movie Labyrinth has its fantastic visual aesthetic. They are the creators of all of those puppets and all of that luscious feeling. One of the things that they have done over the course of a lot of their work is flesh out what I consider to be a deeper pantheon for Fae. And this oracle is part of that. In it, you have the fairy queens, you have their consorts, you have archetypes, you have sprites, you have, all of the things you think of when you think Fae kind of fleshed out into deeper, bigger, more meaningful things. One of the ways that I use this deck is to communicate with the Fae. I have long worked with a fairy queen, and sometimes I don't always understand fairy messages because they're not human. They don't communicate like us. So I use this deck to help with that, either through a spread and reading the message in the spread, or sometimes leaving a card that represents a specific fairy out with an offering, so I can invite the fairy to come have a conversation. That's actually worked really well for me. So that's one of the ways that I use this deck. I tend to use this deck for very private work. I haven't really engaged it with a lot of clients, although I would be happy to do so if there were clients who were committed to working with the Fae. And I think that'd be a really interesting partnership. But anyway, on to our card of the week. I'm trying to see if I can do this without getting... Yeah, the Elven King. You can see, or the Elven Knight. I'm sorry, you can see him here. He is an expression of Elven leadership. He is an expression of momentum forward. He is a very interesting card to draw immediately after solstice. Although, to be honest, I drew him last night on the solstice. So the Elven Knight represents the concepts of leadership, the concept of motivation and pushing through any barriers that were existing before. Sometimes it means this in a very just gonna push right on through sort of a way. Sometimes it means I'm going to push through by rearranging things, but it's always about the leadership that comes with motivation and the motivation that comes with leadership. These two things are very, very tied. The knight alone, so as we've drawn him alone, means or talks very strongly about asking yourself, especially right now, because we're right at the solstice, and so we're at the turning of the year. So the days are going to start getting shorter. We're moving into a different phase of the cycle, and as the knight comes in as a singular card today, the key question is asking yourself, what is it that you want? Be specific. What are the things that you want? Are those things attainable? If so, how so? So the knight is asking you this week to be clear, redefine your desires, make them clear, make them concise, and then make sure you have a plan through the forest to those desires. So we're going to be working on that this week, and there's going to be a lot of things that pop up this week. We've got a bunch of stuff shifting into retrograde. Mercury just went, so with that, I believe Jupiter, Saturn should still be in retrograde. There's a lot of stuff in retrograde, so this is a really good time to ask yourself, what is it exactly that I want? How do I achieve exactly what I want? What wiggle room is there, if there is any? And the knight is going to walk us through this. So one of the things the knight does in this pantheon, in his mythology, is he leads the fairy troop. He is in charge of the fairy troop. He is here to help pull you through with that troop. Just make sure you're not getting caught up in the troop's nonsense if that's not for you. So, fairy knight, the elven knight. Meditate on that guy for a little while this week. We are in the process of redoing our website. We want to add a place to do some sales. I have been playing with the idea of making spell candles. This one is called Love Thyself. Oh no, sorry guys. This little guy is made with herbs and botanicals, most of which I grew myself or my mother grew before she passed. Little spell candles, so those will be up on the website hopefully in a couple of weeks. If not, go ahead and find me on Instagram. All you have to do is search Lunar Magic Tea Time. You can purchase them through Instagram. You can find us on the web at lunarmagicteatime.com. You can email us at lunarmagicteatime.com. The podcast is on the website on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and Podbean. We have a Facebook page and a Facebook group. Go ahead, hit like, subscribe, all of those things here. If you have any questions, we have a couple of big episodes coming up, and then we'll have a couple of lighter episodes coming up. So if you have any questions or you feel like we haven't touched on something you would like us to talk about, go ahead and leave us a comment, fire us an email, any of that. And as always, guys, have a blessed week.